Hello everybody, this is Bitcoin Macro, and on this video guys I'm going to talk about the most recent Coinbase listings. It's one of my favorite topics. Anytime we get major listings, multiple listings on some exchanges, it's something that I definitely like to talk about because I do believe there's a lot of information we can get from that and potentially find some very interesting coins. So recently what has been added on Coinbase is Cartesi, it's iExec, Tellor and MIR protocol. I'm going to talk about all of them, and at the end I'm just going to give you a little bonus, okay? But before that, I would just like to mention that some of these things, guys, are stuff that I share on TradingView. In general, I try to share gems, and then on here I try to be a little bit more serious, a bit more about stuff that are a little bit more hot rather than certain setups. I don't want to go and give people just ideas that they cannot easily track afterwards. So when it comes to that, I usually go on TradingView. Yesterday I did mention Cartesi is set to pump, and it did actually have a pretty nice pump. So for example, that was when I shared my idea. The price was at 0.78. Of course, I was watching this a long time before. It was one of the coins that I owned. I don't share everything all the time. It's pretty much impossible to do it. But sometimes when I see something good like this one, I did share it. Okay, so this one initially had a fairly nice pump. It went all the way up to 1.06, and now it's all the way back to 0.88. And I'm gonna go through everything. I just want to mention this now. I made a nice update for MIR protocol as well. I'm watching this nice trend, so I have this idea right now, which you can see here. You can track how the idea is doing. And for example, you can get proper stop loss and all that stuff. But I will go deeper in all these things very, very soon. Now, let's start by saying a few things about these projects, just briefly. For example, Cartesi is one of the relatively new Binance IOs. It was well, I shouldn't say new because it was in 2020. It was probably in the summer, so I think it's probably not 1 year old. If I look at this, it is 1 year old, where there are others that are much older on Binance, but it's been doing very, very nicely because it has this very nice chart, lots of information you get from here. It's another way for smart contracts. You can just dig into what Cartesi is doing. It's quite promising. Now, there are a lot of things that might go wrong. Of course, it's a young project, it's promising, but anything can fail. So I wouldn't say bet all your money on something like this. Do your research. I'm not an expert in coding and stuff like that, so I would just say go dig deeper. Now, the staking, all the promises and all that stuff, it's definitely something fairly big, but in my opinion, what matters the most is that right now, first of all, we have the Binance listing, but also what happened was we got a Huobi listing, which was something that didn't exist before. Plus, it's one of those tokens that has been on Upbit for some time. Now, on Upbit, it only has a BTC pair, but if they add the Korean pair, a Korean won, that could set for a massive explosion, because we saw that with other coins. Whenever there is a Korean pair added, a Korean won pair, those coins do explode. A good example is Blockstack, which pumped 150% in a day, and Blockstack is bigger than Cartesi. Hope I'm saying the name right, or CTSI if you want for me to just mention the ticker. So having both a Coinbase listing and a Huobi listing, and still not being on many exchanges, potential like OKX, now on Huobi you only have a USDT pair. Maybe Huobi starts only listing these pairs, maybe they stop adding BTC pairs, ETH pairs, or all that stuff. But overall, a Huobi listing is also a major listing, which is something that we need to be considering. But I do believe maybe Bittrex and other stuff are coming relatively soon as well, which are going to be adding for the liquidity for Cartesi. And overall, it's still a relatively small project, okay? 270 million is not that large, at least relative to other coins. So it's definitely something that I would let people know that it's something that still has juice in it. Because right now, first of all, many people already know what happens with Coinbase listings. Usually we get a pump after the announcement, then there is a bit of a dump, and then potentially there is continuation. Now, I don't want to say that the continuation is guaranteed. There is nothing like that thing, because it depends on which phase of the cycle we are in. We've seen many listings go very badly, okay, especially during the bear market, or even during the period where Bitcoin was going up and everything else was going down in Q4 of 2020. So it doesn't mean, and we've seen this with many other things like Binance and other listings, it all depends on which phase of the cycle you're in. You have to remember that. And of course, none of this is investment advice. I'm not saying, guys, go run and buy these coins. Do your own research. Make sure these are your choices. I'm not your financial advisor. So for now, like, I do believe that the Bitcoin chart is very clean. Look at this. That was a bit of a resistance. Same here. That when that turned into support right now, right there, there was a nice pump. When this one turned into support, nice pump. This nice support here. This one, once it got back into being support, pumped very nicely. So as you can see, it has that very nice step function, sort of, where it has a big pump, then it chills out, and then pumps again. So maybe it could come all the way down here. Maybe overall it just chop a little bit in this area before it goes much higher. Because everyone is following these listings, sometimes it might be that some of the whales do dump, or they just don't continue to pump these coins. So just be a little bit more careful when you're buying these things. Now, the trend is very clean. It's very strong. I don't believe it's over, because again, when you broke these all-time highs, like, you could even see this whole area as a uniform high. Okay, maybe even all the way down here. I wouldn't be surprised if someone takes this whole area, because again, it's just mainly wicks and like the shadows of the candles, like nothing special. But once you clear this area, it does look like a very bullish pattern, and a good in my opinion, it could follow the same thing. So again, guys, just remember that these things are here, and potentially you can follow the updates there as well. So next one, I'm just going to talk about iExec RLC, because it's one of the older projects that was listed on Coinbase, and the truth is that I was expecting this one to eventually get listed on Coinbase, but I kind of forgot about it, because the truth is that this is one of the projects that has kept delivering over and over again. So they have been doing lots of upgrades. I'm not like a massive follower of the project, because it's just something I'm not very interested in. Plus, I'm more of a technical guy. But it is a decentralized marketplace for cloud resources. It's one of those coins that I put in the storage and computing category. For me, that's one category in general, rather than having storage and computing separately, because I do believe that those things that have to do with computing resources overall, like anything regarding data storage, processing and stuff like that, it's one category. But it's one that has had many upgrades, and whenever it had those upgrades, it did tend to have these very nice pumps and very nice cycles. So there were like these hype cycles for the project, where it was essentially pumping every time there was going to be a major release. Potentially there was version 1, then version 2, version 3, version 4. At some point they had version 5, but I think that one didn't have a massive pump. But again, the main thing is that, at least for Coinbase, it was one legit project. And I do believe that most of these recent listings that Coinbase has been doing, they are projects that are not really that hyped. Okay, I do believe they have started doing a little bit more quality and a little bit more stuff that are being used, or stuff that have kept delivering over the years, rather than stuff without substance. And that's something that I think it really matters. So of course, this doesn't have that much hype, but it's one of the projects that, in my opinion, could do very well, because if you look at it, even since 2017, it has been forming this very massive base. Okay, so once it came all the way down here, then managed to climb back above support, then fell just below, has had a nice full cycle several times versus Bitcoin, and right now it's trying to break out. Now usually these patterns, they don't really continue much higher immediately. I do believe there might be a little pullback down to this area, okay, because it's something like, look at this as the chart being a little bit heavy, something like there is a bit of resistance above in this zone right here. So maybe it does come all the way up here, then it does go down a little bit and then higher. Now of course the Coinbase listing changes things quite a bit, but coming all the way up there to make a new all-time high, that would be a 700% gain from that point, okay, which isn't that much because several coins have done this year. But of course I just feel like it's a little bit early for that project to do this big leap, because again it's one of those that aren't really that hype. Now maybe the Coinbase listing changes things and maybe they have a major release that drives the hype cycle again, but at least for now I'm not seeing that many listings, okay, except that again even for this one will be listed RLC as well, okay. That is a pretty nice bonus, and I'm going to talk about Mirror afterwards and why I think that one has a bit of a similar behavior. But even this one hasn't been listed on many exchanges other than the addition of Huobi right now, because it was just listed on Binance and some other exchanges. Now one of the most recent ones has been Bithumb, but it has been an addition with a BTC pair rather than a KRW pair. Some of the listings on Bithumb have been like that. I don't know when they started doing just BTC pairs, which was something they didn't really used to do in the past. Maybe some regulatory stuff, but it was just one that, from at least from what I remember in the past, it was just listed on Gate and let's say Bittrex, Binance, stuff like that. So it wasn't on, let's say, OKX, Huobi and others. And that's why right now, or for example FTX, and right now the addition on Coinbase and now the addition on Huobi just brings more attention, and all these listings will just keep on adding on the liquidity, and these things really do matter, especially when that coin has been forming such a nice base versus Bitcoin, and it could potentially break much higher. Now for now I think it might struggle a little bit, but overall after potentially having a little pullback to correct this move, I think it's gonna go higher. And this one as well is pretty much like the Cartesi project, which is about 300 million, which isn't that big. So again, it's definitely one of the projects that if you're interested in computation, it's one of the older ones, the most stable ones, and potentially it's quite, I wouldn't say popular, but I do believe that if you've been long enough in the crypto space, you would probably know it because it's relatively old. Now the next one is Tellor TRB, which is a much smaller one. Well, at least it's half the size of the other two, at least about half the size, but it's one that had the listings on Huobi and other exchanges before it got listed on Coinbase. For example, it is listed on Poloniex, it is listed on OKX, it is listed on Huobi, and it was one of those that got a lot of listings over the summer. So it was one of those projects, guys, that didn't do well, at least at the beginning of the alt season, at least this alt season, because yes, maybe you consider this doing well, but in my opinion at least, being up 200% when everything else has gone up massively isn't that big of a feat, okay? It's not that big of a deal. But when I see this very nice full cycle, this very nice formation of support right here, and the fact that it did come all the way back down to its previous lows right there, it did have that massive bubble, and because it had that massive bubble and with all the listings that kind of exploded. So look at this as if the whales, the people that with the smart money, they started offloading at the top. So usually when something has a massive bubble, it usually retraces the whole thing, especially when you look at it in Bitcoin terms, and then after that it does tend to continue upwards. Now from the project I've talked about so far, Again, this one looks a bit heavy because it has that a little bit of overhead resistance of all these people that had bought back then, and they have kept waiting and waiting and waiting. So it's not fully clean right now, but I do believe that when it comes down to this area, it's very similar to RLC, because I do believe that this is going to be a very nice point to buy and potentially expect much higher price. Now, it doesn't have that much extra addition to liquidity, for example, because of the listings on, let's say, Huobi or OKX or other potential listings. But I do believe that it's fairly good and it could do well, because now Chainlink has also started doing well. Oracle projects have started doing well, along with Ethereum and the DeFi stuff. So potentially this could continue much higher after a nice pullback. So again, not much to say. It's a decentralized Oracle network. I don't know if there are specific huge differences for why somebody should prefer this one over Chainlink or another project, but I'm just letting you know that this is definitely one of the projects to be looking at right now, at least in terms of price. Okay, I'm not saying it's going to be the best project, I'm not saying it is the only project, but it's definitely one of those that, you know, it might be interesting to you guys. And finally, I'm going to go into Mirror Protocol. Mirror is the largest one, and I left it for the end because I made that idea that I mentioned at the beginning, because there are more things that I want to talk about for Mirror. Now, Mirror is about 650 million in market cap. The fully diluted valuation is fairly high. It's about 4 billion. So that kind of has a little bit of higher inflation, and I think that kind of has affected the price so far. But it has quite a lot of total value locked, about 2.1 billion, much larger. So if that keeps growing, the project would keep growing as well. So I do believe it's fairly good, like having a fully diluted valuation versus the total value locked at 1.8 is not too much. So it's just something to keep in mind. Now, there are other similar projects, not exactly similar, but not identical, but for example, Injective Protocol or Synthetics and stuff like that, they are similar, but I do believe that Mirror Protocol does have a bit of an advantage on some of them because it's listed on Terra, which is a scaling solution. It's a blockchain solution, and so far Mirror was initially just a little gem. Okay, so it started on Uniswap, then it was added on Bithumb, then it was added on MXC and KuCoin. So it wasn't doing very well at the beginning. Now it's listed on TerraSwap as well, so it's gaining more liquidity from UST rather than USDT alone, which is the Terra stablecoin, the Luna stablecoin. And recently it was added on Coinbase custody, at least at the beginning. That was the first one that added Mirror. So I'm gonna go with the USDT one on KuCoin. So that was the addition to Coinbase custody. Then we had a big pullback. There was a correction overall for coins. Then this nice pump was the addition to Binance and Huobi at the same time, essentially. First it was announced by Binance and then Huobi added. I do believe that right now Huobi is a little bit of a follower because they just try to outpace Coinbase and Binance. So we'll see tons of listings in general. And now that it has had this correction with this nice little double top right there, I do believe that this is a very nice setup for tremendous upside. I do believe it's gonna go up to $20 because if you look at this, it's a very healthy trend. Now, could it be that it first goes all the way down to this trend, maybe potentially even test this or do like just stay in this area for a little bit more? But in my opinion, this double top will not hold. All of these listings are definitely a big boost. So for me, for this project at least to be a pretty similar level, just let's say 15% higher than it was about a month ago. Okay, about a month ago it was 15% lower, but now it's added on Coinbase, it's added on Binance, it's added on Huobi. And again, also several DeFi coins have been doing much better. And overall, yes, the synthetic, the asset trading haven't been doing very well. Maybe that happens because people don't really care about trading stocks, or because trading stocks on the blockchain or any crypto asset like platform, it doesn't make much sense because they can just trade the same stuff elsewhere. But in my opinion, they are cool projects. They are interesting. They get a lot of attention now. Synthetics haven't been doing well. Maybe that's why Mirror hasn't really exploded either. And if we look at Mirror in Bitcoin terms, it hasn't done like extremely well. Okay, it's just in a nice uptrend, but that's what gives it like that nice upside, because it has that nice trend. It's been going up nicely, has been going up slowly. Now the market cap has been growing in different ways. But when you have that double top and then you come back to a key area that was old resistance, now I do believe in this sort of area there's going to be support and it will continue higher. I see no signs of exhaustion for this project and this coin specifically. So in my opinion, you know, Mirror is going to do fairly well. If you want to learn more about that stuff, you can just go to the website and have a look. And the final one, guys, this is a little bit of a treat. This is a little bit more risky. It's not on Coinbase. I don't really believe it's going to be added on Coinbase anytime soon, but it's one of the recent essentially forks, kind of. It's a different product. This was essentially an airdrop to the NEM protocol, to the XEM users, the XEM. NEM is a really old coin which has been listed on several big exchanges. Okay, so it had this very nice chart, it had that very nice base, it had that full nice cycle versus Bitcoin. It came all the way back down to where that bubble began, and that's the big dump after the fork. Now if we add symbol, which is XIM, XYM, and NEM, XEM, their actual market cap is about their actual price is about this level. However, NEM is still trading on most of these projects, on most of these exchanges. So it has a lot of listings, and I'm gonna show you some of those. But Symbol has started just getting some additions recently. Okay, so it's slowly getting added on more and more exchanges. Now, all of these exchanges like Binance and Huobi, they still hold the coins. But many people might not be aware that they have those coins. Maybe they didn't know what happened, or maybe they won't be able to sell immediately when the listing begins. So a listing on Binance or Huobi, it could drive the price much higher initially. So NEM is a fairly large project, so this one is fairly large as well, because its actual price right now is about 75% that of NEM, which is quite large. Okay, we're talking about a 1.5 plus billion project, maybe 2 or more billion, and it doesn't even have all those listings right here. So if we look at specifically on NEM, I don't know why the price this is lagging, but I'm just gonna look a little bit at the actual what NEM is and what Symbol is, because this is essentially one ecosystem, two blockchains, because Symbol is more like for businesses and like more like a private blockchain, while NEM is actually the open one. Okay, so that's the difference. And if we just look at the listings, look, Upbit, Korean Pairs, Huobi, Binance, OKX, Bithumb, and all these things. So when these things start getting added again and again, maybe that kind of has a very nice pump. Okay, and we've seen this similar situation with Hive, when, for example, we had the Hive fork between Steam and Hive. Now, clearly that was a bit of a different situation, because at the time we had that really big crash in March. That was a big fight between those two blockchains, so it wasn't like one ecosystem. It was Hive forking off because the situation with Justin Tron and stuff like that. So Justin Sun, excuse me, from Tron. So of course this is a little bit more bullish overall. Now the price is relatively fair in my opinion, but again I would bet more that when these listings start occurring and the market is less liquid, it could pump a lot more, because right now you probably only see these listings, but Bittrex recently added it. It hasn't been added on this. Poloniex as well. So I do believe more will follow. So once again, guys, this is no investment advice. I hope you enjoy this content. I hope you like my analysis. I hope you just take something away from that stuff rather than, you know, just buy random stuff that I mentioned, because again, I want you to think for yourself. And these are more like coaching sessions, more like, you know, me giving you information rather than me just giving you a certain trade. I'm just giving you my honest opinion, my honest analysis, as much as I can, to combine technical analysis and fundamental analysis. So please like, subscribe, just leave a comment down below. Tell me what you like. Tell me which one of those coins you like the most. Any negative or positive feedback, everything is welcome. And just remember, guys, I do this stuff on TradingView. I do this stuff on Twitter and Telegram, so you can follow me there. You can join my Telegram channel where I post some updates, where I also share these ideas and videos so that you can get them very quickly when they come out. And of course, guys, I appreciate all of you being here. I always enjoy reading your stuff and just appreciate you giving me some time from your day to watch these things. And I really hope they are very, very useful. So once again, thanks a lot for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.